look at the brand new Samsung Galaxy S20 and Galaxy S20 Plus. Now there's a whole new lineup of Samsung phones out right now. They're going all out for 2020 clearly, so we have the Galaxy S20, the Galaxy S20 Plus, and a new Galaxy S20 Ultra. I've dropped an entire separate video on that S20 Ultra. It's the new Pro version in their lineup, but that phone starts at $1399. And we don't all have a G&a-half to spend on a new phone, no matter how nice it is. So these are the true successors to the Galaxy S10 and S10 Plus, the S20 and S20 Plus. And to me, this is actually one of the biggest jumps up I've seen Samsung take with their phones. Literally everything you can think of is upgraded, and they've taken the biggest jumps in the most important areas of the phone. So the screen, the battery, and the cameras. So let's start with the screen. These are now 6.2 inch and 6.7 inch displays respectively, and they are 120 Hertz Quad HD OLED displays. So super high resolution, HDR plus, and super responsive high refresh rate screens. This is the train I've been telling you guys flagships are all gonna get on in 2020. And to match that super high refresh rate, Samsung has also doubled the touch sensitivity to a 240 Hertz sample rate, meaning it responds to touch input twice as fast. And the whole new speed difference is instantly noticeable. Now, obviously it's still tough for me to show you guys in this a 30 FPS YouTube video, but yeah, literally everything from swiping around the UI to opening and closing apps and scrolling and eventually, of course, gaming, everything will look and feel smoother. And I think Samsung has also tweaked some of these animations in One UI to be a bit shorter and snappier too. So you can easily tell it feels way smoother than 60 Hertz, and I can actually tell the difference versus 90 as well, which I've gotten used to. Hey, Editor Marquez here real quick with a little message, little asterisk. So Galaxy S20s at 120 Hertz are actually going to be limited to 1080p, not full resolution 1440p. So this is something I just found out later after the briefing. I didn't even really notice while using it, but if you get the phone out the box, it will be at 1440p and at 60 Hertz. And when you go into the settings to change it to move it up to 120 Hertz, it'll lock you at 1080p, probably to save battery life and power and things like that. Small asterisk on what we've learned about the phone, but figured I'd let you know. Back to the video. So, I'm super happy about the screen. And on top of all that, there's now the center hole punch you can see, which I actually prefer because unlike the corners, there's usually nothing being blocked in the middle. And it's now actually flatter, which is so unlike Samsung because they've always been the ones to push the curved glass melting over the sides. But hey, new decade, new Samsung, now this display doesn't melt over the edge nearly as much, or kind of at all. It's much more flat, and in my opinion, much more usable. And they still have the ultrasonic fingerprint reader, of course, underneath the display. Now, let's talk about battery for a second. They have increased the battery sizes on all these phones by a healthy amount too. So it's a 4,000 milliamp hour battery on the smaller S20 and a 4,500 milliamp hour battery on the S20 Plus. So they're not trying to make these phones super razor thin, which is great. They're actually just a tiny bit thicker, but it's also probably because with a huge, bright 120 Hertz display, you're gonna want all the battery you can get. So this is something we're gonna have to test, of course, when we get the phone in for the full review, but I'm at least glad to see on the spec sheet much larger cells. Plus there's still 25 watt fast charging with that charger included in the box and wireless charging too. And while we're at it, let's hit the specs. Boom, there you go. High-end CPU, an insane 12 gigabytes of RAM on all of them, expandable storage, IP68 certified. I mean, these phones are complete on the spec sheet. Not quite as wild as the S20 Ultra, but still no big shortcomings as you'd expect from a Samsung flagship. And the entire lineup is also all 5G capable, but I don't think this is quite a game changer as much as some people will try to make it out to be. The S20 and S20 Plus, they will not do millimeter wave, so only sub-6 5G. And so it'll say 5G in the corner, but we talked about this in a previous video. It's only going to be up to about 20% faster than good 4G on a good day. And so I wouldn't buy this phone just for the 5G. So anyway, let's hit the last and probably most important new piece of these new phones with the Galaxy S20, and that is the cameras. They are a huge focus for Samsung in these new phones this year, pun intended. And I haven't seen the unpacked slideshow slides yet. I'm recording this before that. But I'd be willing to bet that probably half of them, at least half, are about cameras. So you're looking at a new triple camera setup for the S20, and the S20 Plus has room for an extra depth sensor, but otherwise they're the same things here, with a new 12 megapixel main sensor at f1.8. Then there's a 3x 64 megapixel telephoto camera at f2 and a 12 megapixel ultra wide at f2.2. And they are all physically larger sensors than last year, which is great for pretty much everything: light sensitivity, low light performance, and anything else basically to do with photography. And there's some serious zoom capabilities, not just optical zoom, but with software giving you a 10x multiplier. That's gonna give you a comfortable 30x hybrid zoom. And I know this isn't a video about the Ultra, but that phone has a 10x zoom, which means the hybrid zoom with software will go up to 100x, which is ridiculous. But they'll call all of this space zoom. It could have called it galaxy zoom, but I guess that works as well. But the nice cherry on top of all of this is they're all capable of 8K 24 FPS video across the whole lineup. Now, 8K video in a smartphone camera sounds incredible. Sounds like something I'd put in my dream phone, but there is a catch. 4K was already big, but 8K video is 33 megapixels per frame, which is awesome because you get the flexibility of being able to pull 33 megapixel stills from a video. But to get that, you have to have a window of a sensor big enough to shoot 8K video, which means you need at least a 33 megapixel sensor. But the main camera on these phones, like I mentioned, is that 12 megapixel sensor. It's the 3x telephoto that's 64 megapixels. So when you go into the settings and turn the video resolution to 8K like I did, that's gonna be coming from that telephoto camera, not the main camera. So it's gonna punch in a bit, as you can tell, which definitely drops it a bit on the convenience side. Also, 8K doesn't support tracking autofocus or video effects, some things to note as it says here in the settings. So they do technically shoot 8K, yes, but it's not from the main sensor, it's punched in. There's just a little bit extra to think about when maxing out video on these phones. So it's not like the dream world where we can stream 8K over 5G to YouTube without even thinking about it. Just not quite there yet. Either way though, as you can tell, with the entire rest of this phone, not a whole lot to dislike. Even a lot of the little stuff they changed, I'm liking too. They changed the button situation, so now the buttons have moved back over to the right-hand side, and the dedicated Bixby button is gone. They're also pretty lightweight phones as well. Despite their size and the bigger batteries, I was impressed with how good they feel in the hand and how light they are compared to some other big phones. And Samsung's One UI 2.0 has some neat improvements as well. Now, I'd be lying if I said I loved it. It's still far from my favorite flavor of Android, but there's still things like building a zoom preview into the camera app now. So when you're zoomed in super far, you still get that preview in the top left of what the hell you're zooming into, which is super useful. And there's other stuff like Spotify now integrated into Bixby routines, and HD Google Duo video chat built natively into the dialer, and some other stuff like the subtle new animations. And there's also a new single take mode in the camera. It's like the opposite of pro mode. Basically, instead of you doing all the hard work of taking several photos and videos, you just hit the shutter button once and point it at some action, and it'll decide for you when to take photos and videos based on, when eyes are open and faces are smiling and stuff. Seems kind of cool, but this isn't something I think I'll ever use. Call me crazy, but I like taking the photos myself. But at the end of the day, if you look back at this whole thing, you go down the spec sheet and everything they've done with this phone, it's hard to find anything you could consider a weakness or a complaint or a downside or a bad thing about this phone, aside from maybe the price. Now, of course, a lot of this is on paper and based on like the 2 hours that I spent with this phone getting this footage, but honestly, I'm excited to review this phone. Definitely subscribe to be among the first to see that when it comes out if you haven't already. Yeah, is it too early to call Samsung a frontrunner for the most improved award, just based on how many things are better about this phone? I don't know, something to think about. Either way, thanks for watching, and definitely check out the Galaxy S20 Ultra video. First link below the like button. If you haven't already watched that, check that one out too. Catch you guys in the next one. Peace.